You show, the best show on earth. Also the only show that's been here for 100 years. So truth be told. So inshallah, today we have a very interesting topic. Interesting in my opinion. Anyway, we're talking about sects in Islam, and we have some experts with us in the panel who I'll introduce in a second. But also, as you know, we have our daily competition running. We have 5 fish and chips to give away, and if you go onto our Facebook page, you'll find out how. It's Muslim Youth Show, and you can find out there. But going straight back to the topic, I'm going to first of all introduce my panel. So I have with me, alhamdulillah, Abdul, our very own producer.
Assalamu alaikum.
We also have with us Ahmed from the Glasgow Ahl al-Bayt Association. He's a coordinator for the Glasgow Ahl al-Bayt Association. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Okay. And with us we also have Sheikh Hassan Arabani from the Ziyad Al-Quran Mosque in Pollock Shields, I believe. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
And as always, we also have, Junaid.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Who really cares? But we also have another panelist today. She'll be on the phone to us. It is Dr. And I hope I can say this correctly, Dr. Dr. Saiko Yakazi. She's a religious lecturer in Glasgow University, and she's also an expert in Sufism. So, hello, Dr. Siku, could you hear us? Hello? Oh, okay, so unfortunately we've had some difficulty. We can't get her on air at the moment, but hopefully we can bring her in a little while later. But going straight into the topic, I know we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of questions out there. If you do have any questions, we won't be taking any calls today, but if you have any questions, feel free to comment on the post regarding this show on the Facebook page, and inshallah we'll try our best to answer it. So I'm going to go straight to Abdul. Abdul, what's our first question for the panelists?
I'm just going to have some brief, opening topics for the each guest, just to introduce themselves. So first of all, for Ahmed to my right, just thank you for coming on to the show. I just want to ask if you could, inshallah, talk about yourself and the organisation you represent, so the activities you do.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل البيت الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى صحبه المنتجبين. Thank you very much for inviting me onto the show. It's a very interesting format you have today. Just to introduce myself, I guess in a community perspective, I work for the Glasgow Ahl al-Bayt Association, and this was a group that was initially designed to help the youth with the vacuum of education, Quran and fiqh and history and theology within the Shia school of thought. It's also committed to many projects in the wider community involving health initiatives, environmental as well. For example, this year Ramadan we have focused on the topic of mental health and invited scholars, community organisations and trade professionals to give talks on these various elements of mental health and how to combat them. So we tackle topical issues and try and address them in the most positive way, engaging way as well.
Okay, and Sheikh, yourself, what kind of organisation are you part of, and what's also your academic background and what you've done?
I spent 5 years in Al-Azhar University in Cairo, did my undergraduate there. Did my first postgraduate in Aberdeen University. I'm currently doing my second postgraduate in Glasgow Uni in philosophy.
Okay.
What do I do? So I am an Imam in Ziya al-Quran, and I've also established an institute called the Zainab Cobalt Institute.
Okay.
The aim is to re-engage the youth with our actual tradition.
Okay.
We'll talk about that later once we're discussing that. Apart from that, what do I do? Yeah, that's all. I used to be a regular Radio Ramadan, but I've cut down on that.
Okay. What show were you used to do? What show was it that you used to do? Show?
I used to do the Iftar show with Zubair Malik.
Oh, right.
And then I used to come on a few times at the late night show.
Oh, right.
That's legacy
I
show.
think I died out, didn't it not?
I think it got not taken off, but yeah.
Replaced by a much more superior show, the Muslim Youth something show.
Yeah, the Muslim Youth Show. I think I've heard of it somewhere.
Something along those lines.
Remember, you can catch us on Facebook. It's alright. I mean, mashallah, great panel. Loads of experience, loads of knowledge. So we're going to go into the questions that we have for them today in regards to understanding the different segments of Islam that are present in Glasgow today.
Okay, so just regarding the different segments, just factually speaking, could you possibly go into some detail as to what is the difference between Sunni and Shiism within Islam? Sheikh, do you want to go first?
Yeah, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I think it's very difficult just to talk about it, and to be honest, I think it's a theological difference. So people who are not really trained in theology will probably not understand or appreciate it. But I think the most fundamental difference between Sunni Islam and Shia Islam is in terms of leadership. Sunni Islam says that leadership after the Prophet ﷺ was based on the community, what the community chose, and this was based on the hadith of the Prophet that my ummah is not going to agree on an error. So Sunni Islam believed that as a community we are almost immune to sin, right? Okay. The community in large. So the political leadership then went to Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anh. According to the Shia sect, they believe that the one who's closest to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam should have been appointed for that. So Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And there's very hadith and ayahs of the Quran that the both groups actually use to back their dalil up. Obviously, according to Sunni Islam, then Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib came as the fourth Khalif, not as the first. But I think the contentious text probably is of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he said regarding Sayyidina Ali, Man kuntu mawla fa aliyu mawla, that for whoever I am the leader, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu is their leader. Okay. So for Sunni Islam, and there's different interpretations to that hadith. Some said that it's not in the political realm, it's just in the spiritual realm. So Sayyidina Ali is superior to all other companions in the spiritual realm. And others just said that this basically talks about one specific fadila of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. But obviously, according to the Shia group, they believe that this hadith was just not spiritual. It was actually talked about the actual successor of the Prophet ﷺ. So Abu al-Hasan Ash'ari, one of the great scholars of Sunni Islam, he says that the first kind of difference between the community of the Prophet ﷺ was essentially the question of caliphate. Yeah. So in that sense, you could probably see as more of a political difference rather than religious. Like
pre-time of the Prophet ﷺ, I mean, we generally agree on most of the stuff, but what happens post is where the difference exists. Yeah, so I mean, I think this is someone should understand. So essentially we have the same aqidah in terms of tawheed and in terms of Khatm al-Nubuwwah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We all believe that there's one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his essential attributes. We believe the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is the last messenger, he is the best of all prophets, and he is the best form of means to reach to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the main point is something which almost there's no discussion and there's no division over. It's just some historical points, which obviously scholars then say, because they're historical points, is not, I mean, it's history, it's gone. So you shouldn't use that as a form of justification to really bring division. So that's something we're, obviously me and Ahmed we're working against. Okay. Ahmed, do you have anything to add to that? Like, what do you feel?
Bismillah. I'd like to echo what Sheikh Rabbani said at the beginning in terms of making this a discussion, one that, to qualify the question, it is a theological question that should be asked in terms of when you ask, I fundamentally believe if you want to ask somebody about their belief system, you ask the individual, you ask that person or the scholar that's well versed in that school of thought, and then you get an exchange of academic opinions in that respect. Like, for example, if someone was to ask me about Sunni Islam or Christianity or something like that, I would want, if I'm in a panel with someone as well, I'd like them to explain it, and then we can look at the lots of the commonalities, and then if there's differences we can discuss them in a logical format within a certain framework. what we have to probably just mention, or I have to mention, is the fact that fundamentally believe that the difference, like Sheikh Rabai did allude to, was on the concept of divine leadership of a community. And I use the word divine as a pretext because I fundamentally believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, starting from Nabi Adam alayhi salam, he bestowed the community, society, the planet with a Khalifa from the very beginning, who was Nabi Adam alayhi salam, Khalifa al-Ard. So he always has bestowed this divinely guided leader to the community so that they can be guided towards the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the cycle of prophethood obviously ended with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and fundamentally the Shia school of thought would believe that the imamate, as in there was a continuation of this divine guidance through the community, and it was done by certain individuals that were instructed to, via the Prophet, to then lead the community in a spiritual as well as political way. I do have an issue just calling it a political issue, because political can be sort of misinterpreted as thinking it's within outside the scope of religion, but fundamentally there is a certain theological difference, and this is something we can discuss, but maybe today, for example, is not the platform to discuss the details of the theological discussion, and maybe we can focus on whether there's misconceptions out there, whether there's any views that people have about certain groups, and we can discuss them in a very informal manner. I'm happy to do so, inshallah.
Okay. We have Psycho,
Alhamdulillah, I think we're going to get Dr. Psycho Yazaki on the air, inshallah, so I'm just going to put her on.
Hello?
Hello, doctor, can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine, thank you. Sorry it took us a
great.
while to get you on. I know we've been putting on hold for a while. But the Sheikh's had a lot to say. But now it's Alhamdulillah, it's your turn. So I know that you're a lecturer on religion in Glasgow University, the best university in Glasgow, of course.
Thank you.
And and you're an expert in Sufism. So could you tell us maybe the key and the essential differences between perhaps Sufism, it's the mainstream Sunnis and the Shia sects,
if possible.
Yes, I wouldn't really say I think you mentioned, and also many people mentioned, that Sufism is a sect in Islam, different from Sunnis and or Shiites, but probably I wouldn't really call Sufism as a sect, because many people call it as a kind of phenomenon or movement or dimension of Islam, like a mystical dimension of Islam. So probably the emphasis is slightly different, because Sufis would like to experience their faith rather than just theologically or linguistically or logically understand the faith. So that's the main difference. But legal issues and other things, there are many Sunni Sufis, and some of my Iranian friends would say all Shiites are Sufis, because according to them, Shiite understanding of Islam does include some aspects of Sufi understanding of Islam. So it's not really clear cut actually what the main differences are.
Okay. Well, where does Sufism come from then? Because we've had Sheikh describe where this after the passing of Rasul happened, that's when the kind of the political leadership happened. So where did Sufism come into play?
Well, of course, all the Sufi orders nowadays, which were formed around from the 12th century onwards, and they always claim that, of course, they go back to the origin of their orders at the time of the Prophet Muhammad. And it is true that some of his companions already had some interest in kind of inward-looking tendency, not only following the law outwardly. They would like to also follow their intention and their heart, and then an internal dimension of the faith. So in that way, we can say that the beginning of Sufism is the beginning of Islam as well. And then also from the beginning, the Quran and Sunnah has been the principal source of contemplation and inspiration for every serious Muslim, and ascetics and mystics as well. So in that way, Sufism did does have origin in Islam.
Okay. And if I'm correct, like you said, there are various orders of Sufism, as they're called, and even one of the leaders of the Sufi movements is actually Scottish. Am I right? I think is.
In Dallas, is it?
Yeah, I think it's Dallas. Yeah. So, I mean, what are the difference between these orders? So, about like you said, you can be a Sunni and be a Shia, be a Sunni and be a Sufi as well, and be a Shia and be a Sufi as well. So, what is the difference between the orders then? Because I know there's quite a few, like Naqshbandi, etc., etc.
Yes, yeah, Qadriya. So they have different founders, and like Rumi as well, like Mehleviya in Turkey. That's quite famous one. So just the differences between orders are just differences of the understanding of certain aspects of Islam according to their founders. And yes, there are quite a few contemporary Sufi movements, including in Scotland and in the UK widely, and also in the States and many countries in Europe. And some new Sufi movements actually include non-Islamic aspects as well. So they are like a mixture of like a neo-Sufi movement, but if they try to trace back to Islamic origin, the difference is actually the way they use tamam practice or the dhikr of Allah can be quite different. But there are kind of superficial differences, and the fundamental tenets are quite similar.
Right, okay.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Dr. Saiko Yakazi. We're going to go for an ad break, and then hopefully we'll have you back after that break. But thank you very much for contributing. I'd like to thank the whole panel so far for taking us off. We're going to go inshallah for this ad break. Remember, we still have the competition running, so you can go onto our Facebook page, Muslim Youth Show, and mention one of the prophets, or comment below and name one of the prophets that are mentioned in the Holy Quran. And inshallah you can win a few G's fish and chips. And if not, then me and Abdul are always here to take them. So inshallah we'll be going into the ad break, and we'll have you back after that, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Chips, 132 Nelson Street. Telephone number 429-4609.
1 month, 1 nation, 1 station, 87.7 FM.
This Ramadan, check the label. During Ramadan, Israel increases its supply of dates around the world. These dates may be grown on illegal Israeli settlements built on stolen Palestinian land. Every Israeli date we buy helps them to continue their oppression. This Ramadan, make sure you don't buy Israeli dates grown on stolen land. Thousands of people are boycotting Israeli dates. Will you join them? I check the label. Do you? I check the label is a Friends of Al-Aqsa campaign.
क्या आपको पता है स्ट्रॉबेरी गार्डन में चिकपीस 12x4 के सिर्फ 199 में दस्तयाब है? और तो और रूह अफ़ज़ा 169, 5 लीटर KTC वेजिटेबल ऑयल सिर्फ 350।
हाँ, मैंने भी सुना है कि रूबी कॉर्न 1 लीटर मैंगो जूस 2 for £1.50 और लार्ज मिरिंडा 3 for £2.50।
चलो चलें, स्ट्रॉबेरी गार्डन्स,
57 4th Street, next to Masjid Noor,
429-1801, और इफ्तारी की तैयारी में मजा ले।
Do you know when Muslims first came to Scotland, or the pioneers of the first mosque in Scotland? Bashir Mann's book, Muslims in Scotland, tells the story of Muslims living here. It explores the progression from their arrival to becoming a key part of Scottish life. Experience the journey of Muslims in Scotland today. Muslims in Scotland is endorsed by Alex Salmond, and all proceeds go to the Scottish Muslim Heritage Trust.
Available to buy at Radio Ramadan, or to purchase the book online, go to muslimsinscotland.com. Remember, that's muslimsinscotland.com.
Is the Inland Revenue giving you a headache? Is time running out to hand in your annual accounts? Have you paid the right amount of tax? Not enough time to complete your self-assessment forms? Shields Associates will sort out all these problems for you. Let us take care of your accounts, tax, VAT, payroll and business plans, giving you time to take care of your business.
Shields Associates, Chartered Certified Accountants, 215 Albert Drive, Glasgow. Telephone 423 6343.
Caravan of Mercy, delivering aid to the poor and needy for the past 10 years. Our current projects are Quran, clothing distribution, water, orphan and student sponsorship, and many more. This Ramadan, we will be providing food and drinking water to thousands of families in Syria, Yemen, Ghana, Gambia, Bangladesh, and India. For the first time, we will support families in Central African Republic, Liberia, and Ivory Coast. Caravan of Mercy trustees and volunteers will be personally going to distribute your donations. £33 will provide a food pack, and £5 will provide a family with clean drinking water. Donate your sadaqah, zakat, and lillah, and support families this Ramadan. To donate, visit caravanofmercy.org or call 0116 276 3344. Caravan of Mercy, serving the needy, delivering to the poor.
अम्बाला इफ्तारी का सारा इंतजाम है। 55 पाउंड में 100 मीट समोसास, 50 पाउंड में 100 वेजिटेबल समोसास, बड़े लाम सीख कबाब सिर्फ 70 पाउंड में, बड़े चिकन सीख कबाब सिर्फ 60 पाउंड में।
For special offers, check Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Special Ramadan opening time from 4:30 p.m. to 1 a.m. Call Ambala at 429-5620.
अम्बाला इफ्तारी स्पेशल, एक सीख कबाब, पुलाव राइस, चिकन कढ़ाई और एक कैन सिर्फ 5.99 में। अम्बाला, 4th Street, Pollock Shields, Glasgow.
The Ark and Radio Ramadan presents Eid in the Park.
Come along for a family day out. Have a laugh on the mega bouncy castle.
Try your luck on the rodeo bull, quad biking, assault course and wild water walkers.
All the activities are available for kids and adults too.
Tempt your taste buds with our delicious cuisine and worldwide teas from our cafe.
Ladies, don't forget to check out the amazing stalls including our bespoke beauty anchor, clothing stalls and much, much more.
Eid in the Park, 26th of July, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Maxwell Park and Pollock Shields Borough Hall, an event for all communities.
Eid in the Park, brought to you by The Ark and Radio Ramadan, sponsored by Islamic Relief.
Treat yourself or gift a loved one this Ramadan at Ramzan Costume Jewellery. Eye-sparkling matching jewellery to go with any occasion. We stock Kyle's Collection, Gemini of London, Art of India, Miss Chic and many more. Ramzan Jewellers, an established family business with the finest of jewellery. Find us at 173 Albert Drive, a few doors away from their original shop, Ramzan Jewellers. Telephone number 423-2159.
For the past 20 years, Imran Khan Cancer Appeal has been bringing hope to thousands of families of victims of cancer. Cancer destroys families to the core. Imran Khan Cancer Appeal helps repair and restore hope where many of the families are not able to afford treatment. We have saved over 100,000 lives and over 1.5 million interventions. This Ramadan, feed a cancer patient. Please donate to a person whose recovery depends on the food they will receive. Imran Khan Cancer Appeal, bringing hope to the future. Contact us on 01274 424 444.
A is for Allah, B is for Bismillah, R is for Radio Ramadan, 87.7 FM.
Saving energy, saving our world with Radio Ramadan.
Turn your thermostat down by 1 degree. Leave it for a day to see if it's still warm enough, as every degree could save you an average of £65 per year. That's 10% of your heating bill.
عندما يسدل الليل أسترا من ظلام عندما يخفق القلب
This is the Jigga Jigga Jingle for the Muslim Youth Show. It's on every day at 4. Don't you know when the clock hits 4? Put up the radio and you know it's right, cause your mind it'll blow. It's only on this channel 87.7. This is the channel that'll take you straight to heaven. This Ramadan, do your bit for Islam. Sound for the soul. Check out Radio Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to the Muslim Youth Show, the best show on earth. Also the only show that's been here for 100 years. Now, they argue with me on this, but they know they should know better. Inshallah, we're going to go straight back into our very serious topics about sex in Islam. And we're going to talk about, the common misconceptions that we have, the common misunderstandings that we have, and, some of the other issues that crop up that are not necessarily true. And we have, alhamdulillah, our experts with us today.
Yeah, and more about unity as well.
And a bit more about unity, inshallah. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite interesting. I mean, the format of the show, I really do, first of all, congratulate yourself for bringing the show to this audience. I want to throw it back to you guys, for example, like what issues and what things do you face on a daily basis that you'd like to probably have something cleared up, or something that, which, not like the mundane issues, but something that would be what you'd consider antagonistic, or something that confuses you and so on, and maybe we can address these. And so,
well, I've got a friend from down south, my Shia friend. It's the only friend who I know who is Shia, but when we go to the mosque together, I mean, when we go to pray, he sometimes puts down like a tissue or something, or when we're outside, he purposely goes towards the grass as opposed to putting, a jacket down. Because, I mean, I asked him about it, and he said it was something to do about, having to have like a natural flooring or something when you read his salah. I mean, I was just curious about him and just asking him, but obviously, when I asked him the question, he was just a bit, taken aback that I was a bit curious as opposed to a bit, antagonistic. But I mean, could you explain it? Why?
Okay, so this is a practice. So we're going to fiqh issues, jurisprudential rather than ideological or theological. But in terms of that simple practice, the simple explanation is that the Shia believe that the way of the Prophet was he prayed on everything that was natural, and the ground is what he mostly prayed on. He used to carry a bag of dust as well, or earth, and used to lay that on the ground and put his head on that. So you'll find that many people that follow the Shia school of thought will have a round clay stone.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Turba. So this is basically made of clay, made of earth, and it's just a natural substance that people prostrate on their heads on. And it goes back to many traditions I could refer to where the Prophet used to talk to his companions and say, please make your heads dirty with the earth and so on, as a form of practice. And also, for example, the masjids in Medina and so on didn't have carpets until 200 years after his time. So it's very much going back to the sunnah of the Prophet.
If I can just direct, just leading on from that to the Sheikh, who is alhamdulillah still with us, in terms of the sorry, I'm very bad with names here. Ahmed just said that they just do it as because of the sunnah of the Prophet to prostrate on earth. As a Sunni, is that an okay thing to do
for us?
For us, like as Sunnis. So, for example, because he's explained it very nicely, and Jazakallah khair for that, because I never understood it until now. But is that an okay thing to do, to prostrate on earth? Even pray or something. Yeah.
Okay, Bismillah. So just like Ahmed said, it's a fiqh issue, and in terms of fiqh, there's always been a difference of understanding even amongst the Sunni scholars and Sunni theologians, and this traces back to the Sahaba themselves. So, for instance, the Hanafi madhab was based on the understanding of what Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu took from the Prophet, because he was then later sent to Iraq, and Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, most of his fiqh is based on the understanding of Ibn Mas'ud. But if you go back to the earliest generations, even amongst the Sahaba, there was a difference of opinion, how they prayed, how they saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how they understood what the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam was doing. So, like you said, a fiqh issue in itself shouldn't really breed animosity or hatred. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ikhtilaf ummati rahmah," that the difference in opinion in my ummah is a form of mercy. Now, this difference refers to the different issues in fiqh which are a form of mercy. So you look at Imam Shafi, for instance, when he moves to Egypt, he changes the whole Shafi'i madhab to make it easier for the people of Egypt. One difference of opinion of fiqh would be interesting now in Ramadan. There's a few different timetables out there in terms of sahri, when to start, and that's based on against another fiqh difference, because there's no Isha time that comes. So the Sunni scholars themselves had different opinions. Some say it's at 2:18, some say it's 1:30, some say it's 4 p.m. So they're all different understanding of the text, and this difference, the Prophet ﷺ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, is a form of mercy. How it accommodates different people. Some people it's difficult at 1:30, they're easier to go for the 2:30, some go for the 4 o'clock. So keeping this in mind, when you go back to the early generation, so Ahmed talked about why the Shia school actually do that. According to the Sunni school in itself, the Prophet ﷺ, obviously there was no carpets or anything at that time, so he ﷺ did perform on dust, as I like to say it, but there was no prohibition, and there was no stress of that sunnah that we must do it on dust. It's just the Prophet ﷺ, the climate that he was living in and the city he was living in, he actually did that. So when the Sahaba, for instance, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened wealth to them, many of them went to Damascus and so forth, they start praying on rugs and they start praying on different forms. So for them it wasn't really important what they're actually praying on, it was really where the heart was and if they were actually praying that correctly. So that's how Sunni Islam generally understood those traditions. It wasn't stress to actually pray on earth. In fact, later jurists then actually talked about tahara of the place, that you should make sure that the place that you're praying on is clean. So what we actually do is then we generally use a prayer mat because we don't really know if the earth is pure or not. It could have najasa on it and so forth, so we use a prayer mat. But different understanding of fiqh is not really a problem. So even within the Shia practices, there's a difference of opinion of fiqh. And I think it's important people need to understand their issues of fiqh and not of aqidah. If you go to your own local mosque, you'll see people praying differently. The Shafi'is pray different from the Hanafis, the Malikis pray differently to the Hanbalis. In fact, in Azhar in 1957, Sheikh al-Azhar at that time, Sheikh Shaltut, when Azhar was studying fiqh, they actually added the Shia schools to study in fiqh. So where I studied in Azhar, where we studied the 4 schools, we also studied the Ja'fari madhab and the Zaydi madhab as a form of fiqh. And when they started with the actual early conferences, so for instance the Darut Taqrib lil Madahib, which was opened by Azhar at that time, and they said that the Hanafis, the Malikis, the Shafi'is, they were sitting next to the Ja'faris and the Zaydis. So the Sunnis, in fact, almost opened the university doors to understanding the different madhabs of fiqh, and we didn't see this was problematic. It was really making our understanding much more wiser.
Like you said, even if you go to a Sunni mosque, you see there's different ways of praying. Then I just want to understand, why is there not one universal way of praying? I know it's such a big question, like a large question, because Salat is one of the main things to become a Muslim, so how can there isn't one single way?
So there's difference between belief and there's difference between action.
Yeah.
Universally we all believe Salah is fard and we believe the times. The difference is in terms of form, and this goes back to the early generations, and in fact is in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says one of his signs is that we have different intellects, right? We're all different people. The Prophet himself could have said that from now on all the Muslims are going to pray like this, but he ﷺ didn't do that, just to accommodate the different scholars and the different understandings in the madhab. So we should really take it as a form of, we say there's unity in diversity. That's how we should look at it. We shouldn't look at it as a form of disunity. Everyone praying together, it'll be like almost robotic, right? It's like we're not engaging with the text, right? Islam has closed the doors to ijtihad, so that's another thing which Ahmed I think will talk about, ijtihad, the scholars using their actual abilities to understand the text. And when they actually did that, they understood that our aqidah is one, but the way that the Sahaba prayed differently, that's how it's come down to us, and that's how we're actually going to pray.
What does he mean by that? Ijtihad, is it?
Ijtihad.
Ijtihad is the independent reasoning of scholars and how to deduce jurisprudential rulings, and it's happened throughout the ages, and in fact Islam as a religion of intellect encourages that in many different ways, so we can explore things differently.
Inshallah. So just moving this conversation on, certainly for myself, growing up, I had a bit of an experience when I was younger. I used to live right outside a Shia mosque, and I never really understood the difference. Being young, my main concern was playing football and making the team. But there was this one day where, and I think this is like one of the most like the prominent visual things that we see as a difference between Sunni and Shia, is when they, I don't know what it's called when they, during for Hassan or Hussein. So I mean, Ahmed, would you be able to explain a bit on that? Where it stems from and what is the meaning behind it, and then maybe hopefully we'll go on to the Sheikh to talk about how the Sunni perspective, kind of doesn't accept that, or it has a difference of opinion.
Okay, well, first of all, I mean, this is we were first of all initially discussed academic issues, and then we discussed something fiqh, and this is outside both of them. So now we're going into cultural practices that are not even adopted by all the Shia school of thought. It's not something that is, it's not like a school of thinking or someone. What you're describing is, of course, is a very poignant moment of history which I think Muslims should more reflect on, and it is the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the grandson of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in the aftermath of course, all Muslims grieved on the martyrdom and the way it happened and the situation that happened. And different communities later on express their grief in different ways. Even if you look at nowadays, when someone's grieving someone, they slap their head or they hit their face and so on with genuine grief. So it's important to identify, first of all, this is not a religious foundation to it in terms of what it's, if it's entrenched in Aqidah or anything like that, or we were discussing before, or any jurisprudence. In fact, the scholars from the Shia school of thought have actually rebuked any form of extremist actions of these people and so on. For example, you might have come across the videos on YouTube or whatever online of people, you know, cutting themselves or hitting themselves in a very aggressive way. And in fact, the scholars have come together and they've told people that this is not within Islam. Islam is not a religion of, you know, hurting yourself and so on. Now, the importance is not to obviously demonize people that do that, because people obviously, like we've mentioned before, have different ways of expressing themselves and so on. It's to, I think that the language of understanding is important, and we can then move on towards more uniting principles.
Does the Sheikh have anything to add to that in terms of at all? No?
No, I think I'm just going to re-emphasize it. I think it's very important that Ahmed touched upon that as a more of a culture practice, and most of the main Shia great scholars, Ayatollah Sistani and others, they actually prohibited any form of serious harm or cutting. And the response to Muharram, I think the Sunni response is of great sadness regarding Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. Because why? His martyrdom was predicted by the Prophet ﷺ. In a very famous hadith, he gave a soil to one of his blessed wives, and he said that when the soil turns to blood, know that my grandchild has been killed. And the famous hadith of the Prophet was, Ana min al-Husayn wal-Husayn minni, that I am from Hussein and Hussein is from me. So in traditional Sunni scholarship, one of the saddest moments was when the grandchild, the beloved grandson of the Prophet ﷺ was massacred, and not just him but just his family. Now the problem is, even within Sunni Islam itself, there's a minority who actually don't really pay much respect to this what actually happened. Unfortunately, some say it was a very political motive for Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu, but this is not a opinion which was scholarly and doesn't reflect Sunni Islam. Mainly why? Because the scholars argue, if this was a political motive, why did Hussein go with his family, with his little children, with his wives, with all the ladies in the household to actually do that? And the Prophet ﷺ himself kind of foretold that my son is going to stand up for justice. So I think it's important, and there's been different kind of ways that people have kind of professed themselves and showed love to Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And Sunni Islam itself, when it comes to Muharram itself, we remember the massacre of Imam Hussein, and we read Quran and we read Durood and we send salutations upon the Ahlul Bayt.
So I think that will probably conclude our
exactly.
differences part. But I think let's talk, at the end of the day, we are all Muslims. So let's talk a bit more about unity. Okay, so I mean, last week, I think you guys did a press conference with yourself from the Glasgow Ahlul Bayt Association and the Sheikh Rabbani and another Sheikh from Minhaj al-Quran. Could you tell us more about what the press conference was about?
So the press conference was last week on Thursday, designed to promote a unity of understanding within the Muslim school of thought, and to show that, one, that any forms of extremist behaviour are not within the Islamic schools of thought, but more importantly, to actually present to the community at large what does Islam actually stand for, and what does ordinary everyday Muslims stand for in this country, especially in Scotland, within the political context that's going on in the Middle East. It's very easy to become sucked into rivalries, and use the football analogy earlier. I mean, that's something I think is very interesting, because I think very much like football, you feel like you have to support certain teams and so on, and eventually when you support a certain team, you end up, if you're playing, the team's playing another team, they hate the other team so much they don't want them to win. And it's that football analogy which is quite relevant, I think, to the discussion at hand, that some people often get sucked into this sort of rivalry between thoughts. But mainly the press conference was there designed to show that both Sunnis, Shias, and across the Muslim community, they condemn any act of form of radical or to be honest, I'd rather not even use the word terrorist or extremist, because these are words coined by the media. I prefer to use words as criminal and murdering, because that's essentially what it was. It was either criminal acts carried out by murdering mafias. That's the best way of describing them. So instead of going down this narrative of extremists, because that tends to mean that it's within, there is a legitimacy within the religion as well for it, when there is no legitimacy whatsoever. People have tried to legitimize it, and it's very important that people know that.
Is this the first kind of event that you've done held in coordination with, with the Sunni community?
No, not at all. I mean, just earlier this year in January, we had a Love Muhammad event, Love Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Now, and obviously, like as the Sheikh has said, Sheikh Rabbani said, I mean, one unifying definite rope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon the whole of humanity, not just the Muslims, is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And through his mercy and his love for general humanity, we can definitely come towards a unity. So that was a sort of conference where we had Sunni and Shia scholars coming forward and speaking about their profession of love for the Prophet. And in also in the previous, we've had peace and unity conferences, where we've had, ironically, at places like Celtic Park. But there was, again, a cross-religious, cross-political, cross-community network of people that were invited, and obviously the Sheikh Rabbani was one of the biggest supporters and contributors to these things as well.
Sheikh, do you think that, I mainly feel that the root of most of the antagonism is misunderstanding, so what do you think more Sunni Muslims could do to, engage with the Shia community, so we can, not get on more, but we can understand it more as well? What do you think Muslims
I think one thing is that we always have to focus on similarities rather than differences. So for instance, the Quran says, addresses the Ahl Kitab, Ya Ahl Kitab, ta'alu ila kalimatin sawa'in baynana wa baynakum. The Quran's telling us that, oh people of the book, come together and let's focus on our similarities. Now, the Christians and the Jews had their own conception and theology regarding God, but the basic idea was there was only one God. So the Quran's telling us that when you're reaching out, we're not even talking about different Muslim sects here, we're talking about Christians and Jews, that you can sit down with them and talk to them on similar topics where there are similarities between you. If this is what the Quran is talking about, different religions, imagine the importance then of those kind of different, I won't call sects or groups, different kind of interpretations of Islam, how important it is for us then to come together regarding similarities. So for instance, like Brother Ahmed said, the Prophet ﷺ is someone who we all cherish, and these things have been happening since the creation of Pakistan. Pakistan itself, when it was created, Sunni Muslims, Shia Muslims are together. When people came out to be claiming false prophets, Sunni and Shia Muslims had Khatm al-Nubuwah conferences denouncing that no one can claim to be a prophet after that. So similarly now, we're actually doing the same thing. It's nothing new. This is something which has been happening for centuries. Me and Ahmed were talking about conferences that happen regularly in the Middle East, about great scholars from Azhar and from the great institutions of Iran and Iraq coming together, sitting down. The only reason we're not told, because these scholars are serious, is not all about a picture and, oh, look at us, we're coming together. It's some serious work that they're actually doing, which people don't see. So I think there's a media fault in there, but I think people have to be more aware. One way they can do that is almost listen to people who are open-minded. Scholars are open-minded. Don't listen to scholars who always looking at points of disunity and always disuniting the ummah. If you see a scholar kind of doing that, you know that you're not going to really learn much from him. Where scholars are always constantly uniting the ummah, you realize that they're almost doing that prophetic job which the Prophet ﷺ did, was to kind of get everyone together. Yeah,
I mean, just to echo that, I mean, the amount of outreach within the community that needs to be done is responsible in everybody. And I think everyone's got that individual responsibility to say, am I doing enough? Am I talking to my brothers outside within my own clique or group and so on? And it's very important that we visit other organizations, other mosques. And there's lots of different things that unite us. For example, the whole issue of Palestine, like many groups have worked together in fighting that injustice. It's never done under sectarian lines. And a word of serious, and Sheikh Ramai did touch on that there, be careful of any scholars, includes online, within the media, within speaking to you individually, who talk along sectarian lines. This comes from both, whatever background they have, whether it's a Shia or Sunni school of thought. Whoever uses that narrative of division and disunity, they should be really seriously consider what they're saying and think about it in a more holistic aspect.
Okay. So one last one. Okay. So so-called Muslims have taken Islam and used it to do their non-Islamic, stuff. So how can Islam reclaim itself in what seems to be a political crisis? It's been reported as a religious crisis when it's not. So always talks of reform, etc., etc. It doesn't need to happen. But how can Muslims reclaim itself through the acts of like good deeds? Because I think it was the Dundee Muslim Message Society. I think it was earlier on this year. They were handing out roses with a quote from Rasul on it as well. So what can we do? Just a brief 1 minute, if you can.
I mean, this is a key point, and you mentioned these acts that are going on in the community, and these are things that can be done at a community level, where you have people handing out roses or handing up messages that the Prophet used to say. I think a genuine engagement of every individual responsibility as being a promoter of peace. And we've been given lots of tools in Islam. Alhamdulillah, Allah has bestowed us with an immense mercy that we have things like prayer, we have salah and so on, which are meant to encourage inculcate our heart with this peace. And then if we can spread this message of peace to the wider community, to the world, naturally we won't need to go out and preach it with a big banner and so on all this time, and naturally people will point to Islam and say, every time I meet these individuals, they're always talking about peace, and they're acting with it as well.
I think people like yourselves, a lot of the young guys, they need to get up and start thinking about new initiatives that can be done. We need to relate to the wider community. So on Eid, for instance, our next door non-Muslim neighbours, give them Eid cards, give them food or something. So I think positive like this. People are only going to change through our akhlaq. You can say give them 20 verses, the Quran, saying peace, 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 but it's only through our character. When we start showing that we actually care, it's going to happen.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much to the whole panel for coming in today and enlightening us, certainly me, because there was many misconceptions and misunderstandings that I had, seeing those things, focusing on my football as a young child. I was a very like, I'm either for one team or against, I'm going to kill the other team kind of guy.
Could I ask what team?
I know you can't. No, not on live radio.
I'm fairly sympathetic.
But Jazakallah khair. I'd like to thank Ahmed and the Sheikh for coming in, Sheikh Rabbani, and also Abdul for organizing this show today, mashallah, and also Dr. Saiko Yazaki for listening in. But Jazakallah khair for listening to the Muslim News Show. Inshallah, we'll be back on Monday. The boys show anyway, the girls show, who cares? The boys show will be back on Monday, and inshallah we'll catch you then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Thank you.
132 Nelson Street. Telephone number 429-4609. G's Fish and Chips. 132 Nelson Street. Telephone number 429-4609.
Radio Ramadan 87.7. Sound for the soul.
I've just been in an accident, bro. It wasn't even my fault. Bro, I need help to sort this.
Relax. I went to All Claims for you. They took care of everything. Sorted me with a top courtesy car within 4 hours, repaired my car, and even got me £3,000 for my whiplash claim.
Call All Claims for You on 0141 429 0808 or pop into the office at 32 St Andrews Road, Pollokshields. All Claims for You, Glasgow Premier Accident Management Company.
When I stop fasting, you don't. When I stop being thirsty, you don't. When I stop being patient, you don't. When you give up on hope, I won't.
This Ramadan, share your relief with those who need it most. Donate your zakat to Islamic Relief today. Call 0800 520 0000 or visit islamic-relief.org.uk.
I'm so pleased to know my mum is in caring and loving hands. It's comforting to know she's receiving the very best care in her own home. And I'm very happy to know that her carers can speak with her in Urdu and Punjabi, and they care for my mum as much as I do. I thank God for them every day.
Do your loved ones need some extra help at home? Home Instead provide the full range of home care services, including companionship, home help, personal care and dementia support. For more information, call
249 0574
or visit homeinstead.co.uk.
Are you worried about your tax or VAT affairs? Are you looking for a qualified accountant? We can help at Clyde Accountants, standing out from the rest. Clyde Accountants, VAT, payroll, accounts and tax planning, tax and VAT investigation, company formation and business planning. Clyde Accountants, professional, friendly service, one-to-one care. Visit us on our website at clydeaccountants.co.uk, 47 Broad Street, Glasgow. Call us today on 556 7329. Clyde Accountants.
Welcome to Deen Over Dunya, situated at the House of Shir Mall. Come along and see our products from Quran, clothing, attar, prayer mats, abayas and much more, with free car parking available and near the motorway and central station. A deal for anyone travelling across Scotland. Deen Over Dunya in House of Shir Mall, 201 to 211 Wallace Street, Glasgow. Telephone number 218 3771. Find us on Facebook and Instagram.
Delicious pre-prepared meals that are HMC halal. Now there's something you don't hear very often. I Eat. Foodie favourite dishes using the finest kitchen cupboard ingredients, just like you'd use at home and nothing else. For a taste of the world, filled to the brim with wholesomeness, flavour and a bag full of love and good intentions. Perfect for iftar and can be ready in minutes. I Eat. HMC foodie favourites. Halalified. Now available in Morrison's in Glasgow and Edinburgh. Please visit ieatfoods.com to find out more.
भाई क्यों परेशान हो? ईद आ गई है. ईद तो खुशी का मौका है.
भाई पिछली ईद पर पाकिस्तान में पैसे टाइम पर नहीं पहुंचे थे. उनकी ईद बर्बाद हो गई थी. वो नए कपड़े भी नहीं ले सके.
लो जी, एक्सप्रेस मनी ट्रांसफर जाइए और अपने पैसे 5 मिनट में वसूल कीजिए. ग्लासगो में सबसे अच्छा रेट. 289 मैक्सवेल रोड, टेलीफोन नंबर 4298810. एक्सप्रेस मनी ट्रांसफर. ये फोन एंड फिक्स का प्रोडक्ट है.
With its 100% donations policy, Ummah Welfare Trust is a relief and development charity that strives to support needy families across the Ummah. Donate your zakah, sadaqah and lillah to the charity this Ramadan and make a difference to the lives of our brothers and sisters. Call 0800 4 0800 11 or visit uwt.org. And visit the shop in Pollock Shields, Glasgow at 127 Albert Drive, G41 2SU.
Glasgow needs a space.
A space for the new home of Radio Ramadan.
A space to create future full-time Muslim radio and TV in Glasgow.
A space where media training skills are provided for young people.
A space like The Ark, 70 Coppola Street, Glasgow. The Ark project needs your help.
Donate now and be part of the space for the future of Islam in Glasgow. My name is Sajid Qayyum and I'm not an actor, but the manager for Project Ark.